Сайн байцгаана уу хүн үзэгчдээ. Өнөөдөр манай де факто нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Испанийн зохиолч, дуучин Елена Алонсо Фрели оролцож байна.
Елена Алонсо Фрели, Испанийн зохиолч, дуучин. Тэрээр Испанд төрж өссөн ба холбооны бүгд наримдах Герман улсаас Монгол улсад сууж буй элчин сайд Штефан Дуфелийн гэргий бөгөөд 2011 онд тус улсын иргэншилтэй болсон. Испанд хууль бизнесийн удирдлагын мэргэжлэр бакалаврын зэрэгээ дүүргэж, Европ судлалын чиглэлээр Франц улсад магистрийн зэрэгээ хамгаалсан. Багаасаа уран зохиолд сонирхолтой байсан тэрээр 2008 оноос хойш ном бичиж эхлэн мөрөөдлөө биелүүлсэн. Одоогоор 10 ном бичээд байгаа бөгөөд түүний хэд хэдэн зохиол хэвлэгдэхээс ч өмнө олон улсын нэр хүндтэй шагналуудыг хүртэж
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to my show.
Thank you very much for having me here.
You have been, first of all, you are the First Lady of German Embassy, the Madame Ambassador. You have been already 1 year or so in Mongolia.
A little longer.
And you have succeeded also, you are continuing your singing also in Mongolia.
Yeah.
And you also continuing, keep writing about the country, and not yet start about Mongolia, but I would like to talk about your previous cases where you got a literature prize in Mexico, in Spain. Please tell us what was the book that most got that prize?
Well, I came into writing at a relative late moment of my life, if you want. As you know, I'm a lawyer. I graduated as a lawyer, but I always felt the need or the wish of getting closer to literature. I felt it always as my vocation. I was always dealing with literature and reading as a passionate reader. So I always thought, well, to be a writer, one needs to have been born a writer. And I thought I was not born a writer. I thought I was born a lawyer, which I was. So I never dreamed of my life to start writing. This is why I have a sort of atypical career. I started writing, as I said, relatively late in Argentina, when we were posted there, already in my 40s. And then being so far away from home, being so far away from my homeland in Spain, I had to start my career in a different way that normally people do. So what did I do? I was writing, so to say, secretly, alone, and then I was sending my manuscripts anonymously to big literature awards. And to my enormous surprise, when I started sending my manuscripts to these awards, I started winning one award after the other. These literature awards involve a certain notation and involve the publication of the work. And this is why, if you ask me now, tell us about your books have been winning awards, this is why most of my books have actually been awarded with literature prizes, because this is the way I publish
Before it
works.
was even published, it was just manuscript.
Yeah, it's a manuscript that I always send anonymously without anybody.
What is that award in Mexico?
This recent award in Mexico was the Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. This is an award given by the government of the state of Mexico with a relative big high dotation as well, and it involves the publication of the work.
So what does that book particularly make an impact on Mexicans?
Yeah, the book is a collection of short stories, this one. And the jury was formed by, supposed to be the highest authorities on short story in Mexico, even in Spain. So I was very pleased and very, very honored to have been chosen as winner of this prize. And I think I commented to you, actually, I also was awarded with this prize some years ago, the Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, which is one of the most prestigious awards for collections of short stories in Mexico. And then, of course, since I write in Spanish, it is also being read in Spain.
You have studied also in France.
Yeah, I studied for 1 year in France. After I graduated, I did my postgraduate studies in France
Where you have met your husband?
Not at all, not at all, actually, no. We met in the Netherlands.
Netherlands.
In the Netherlands.
Both working as colleagues or lawyers?
We were both students back then. We were studying international law at the highest court of justice of the United Nations in The Hague and doing a course, as I say, international law.
And since then, you are a citizen of two countries, right?
Yes.
Or in general, the European Union, I would say, Spain and Germany.
Yeah, I am born a Spaniard, but I acquired a German citizenship in year 2011, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
You have written a book called The Age of Anastasia, about Germany, in the place where Erich Honecker had his summer house.
Exactly.
Tell us about that part.
Yeah, this is a young adult novel that is very narrowly linked to my personal experiences as a mother of a child with a heart disease. So I always wanted to place myself in the situation of my child. What is to be born with a chronic disease? What does it mean to have to cope with chronic disease when you are a child later on, when you start understanding things better? When you are a teenager, you see certain limitations. You might have a different approach to life, to existence, as we all do. So I always wanted to play this role, to put myself in the position of my child and try to understand what his point of view might be. And so this is a novel about chronic disease in a teenager, but it is also a novel that raised during one of our stays of my child, my son and me, during one of our stays at the rehabilitation clinic next to Berlin after one big surgery, that he had a heart surgery. And to my big surprise, this rehabilitation clinic for young and for children with chronic diseases is placed in the same even buildings where the Politburo of the East Germany and the highest positions of the Socialist Party of East Germany used to live. They had a settlement, a forest settlement out of town, out of Berlin, 30 kilometers away from Berlin. They moved there in year 1960 after the Hungarian Revolution, when they thought they were too exposed in the middle of the city. And so it was like a compound, a close settlement.
What is the town nearby?
It is called Banlitz. It is now belongs to the municipality of Bernau. And what shocked me when I was there was the big contrast between what this place used to be back then. I mean, it was, after all, the scenario of very dramatic political decisions affecting to freedom, affecting to destiny of millions of Germans. And now it was totally reconverted into a place of hope.
But was it any place, any construction before Honecker, during this old time of Germany?
No, before that, if I'm not wrong, it was just the forest. I mean, the construction is built in the middle of the forest.
East Germany leadership made that time
Yeah, and since they were a little shocked after the Hungarian Revolution '56, they thought they might have been too exposed in the center. They wanted a little more security to have a close compound.
So this is a relatively very luxury place.
Yeah, for East German standards was a luxury place.
So now it became more sort of rehabilitation center.
Yeah, it was reconverted completely, but the original houses are still standing there. And so you are able to sleep, and this is where the patients sleep, accompanied by their parents.
And did it help your child to have rehabilitation?
He recovered completely. I mean, he was
good for you.
He was full into his rehabilitation program. I was supporting him, but at the same time, I was feeling there was a vibration there that one day I would like to think about, and I would like to talk about and write about in one of my novels.
Why you call it Anastasia?
Well, the Anastasia, of course, refers to this double thematic of the book. On one hand, it is the Anastasia, the age of the anesthesia. It is this time of sick children who have to go to very often through surgeries and so on. And this anesthesia, it also refers to a time, actually to decades of history in East Germany, where people had to be like numbed, not to understand that they were living and their lack of freedom.
Very interesting metaphor.
Yes.
Actually, in some socialist countries, they try to avoid the reality. They just go by whatever the leader said and forget your individual opinion. If you need, we will give you one. This is the time of Anastasia.
Exactly.
The second book, very interesting book you wrote, is about the Choirboys.
Ah, yes.
Please tell us about this one.
Yes, this is about the Vienna Choirboys, these famous choirboys of children. And this is actually a book that will be translated into Mongolian. We're already working on it with the Monsudar Publisher House, so I believe it will be appearing next spring. I'm very excited about that. But the story is also something that I particularly was very attached to. And it has to do with the fate of the Vienna choirboys during the 30s, when they were doing a whole tour around the world that lasted for over 1 year, I think. And they were traveling to the United States and later on to the islands in the Pacific and ended up in Australia. And this was September 39. When they were there ready to go back home, they were stranded in Perth because Second World War had started in Europe. And think that they were Austrian, I mean they were the Vienna choirboys, but March 38, the annexion of Austria had happened. I mean, Hitler had invaded Austria, and this was part then of the Dritte Reich. So it was part of Germany. Austria was part of Germany. And the choirboys, being Austrian, they were treated as Germans. They were children, but they were a problem in Austria. In Australia, they couldn't go back home. They were stranded there. Their ship was requisitioned for war work. So what happened with them? They were offered foster care by the Archbishop of Melbourne, who formed another choir with them in Melbourne. And actually, they spent all their lives in Australia. So what this story told me was the difficulty to know, the unpredictability of fate, if you want.
How many of them?
There were 20 boys, I think, who were on tour. 20 boys who were on tour.
Under 20s?
Under 20s. They were from 9 to 14 years old, so they were children.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you don't know what is going to happen with you tomorrow, like this is the case?
Exactly.
Are they alive now? What are they?
No.
Have you met some of them?
No, but I was actually, I mean, the first time I heard about this story was in the National Museum of Canberra, where they exposed it in a corner. I mean, it was not really an issue there, but somehow it's a kind of stories I like. So it captured my attention and kept on running there. I thought one day I will write about that, also because it has to do with music, which is something I also feel very close to. But when I thought, okay, I would like to write a young adult novel about that, I even contacted the National Museum of Canberra and told them, could you please, I remember having seen some files, some photographs there at the museum, but I would like to have them, look at them again, get inspired, but really go into first source material. And they were so kind as to send me all these materials. So it worked me. They really, they digitalized whatever they had and they sent it to me. And then afterwards, after I worked on that, finished the novel, and this novel was awarded also with a literature prize in Spain. They made a big deal with this literature prize, a celebration. There was a long video of the prize delivery.
Whoa.
And I sent this video to the museum in Canberra and saying, well, remember 1 year ago you helped me, and this is what happened with this novel. Wow. So it was very fantastic.
I think these sort of books helping people to take care of the peace, cooperation, friendship.
Yeah, and also my task is also to make people think, what is time? What is history? What do we know about our own fate? There is a moment of this novel where some of the characters already grown up after being there says, well, music after all saved us. And then the other one answers, yeah, what do you call saving us? I mean, it even turns a little metaphysical in the thought.
To talk about the music. But before that, you have been posted your family as German diplomats to Argentina. Exactly. Argentina is one of the countries who was exactly with this choirboy story. Suddenly when the Third Reich finished, they were receiving Germans as their citizens. Yeah. And there were Germans who even some fleet were coming there and they have created German villages in
exactly,
Argentina.
you know that.
Have you seen that?
Yes, of course.
Please tell us about that.
Yes, I remember. It was very funny because my kids back then, they were relatively small. They must have been like 5, 6 years old, something like this. So we went to one of these villages that you mentioned in the middle of the Pampa, in the middle of nowhere there. And suddenly we got out of the car and our children said, "Oh, this looks like Germany." Are we back in Germany or what? Because the construction of the villages reminded a lot of the houses to the houses, the architecture in Bavaria, in Bayern. So they were like, "What is this?" And we were in Argentina, suddenly it all looks like in Germany. And I remember also traveling, my husband back then, he was a cultural counselor. So we were even invited to some of these German celebrations, the Volga Deutzen, you know.
How many of bad Germans in Argentina?
I couldn't really tell you now, but I know that they
have a small town.
Exactly, this is what you said. They are gathering in small places where they really concentrate.
Well, they start to brew beer, to grow whatever they could do in Germany.
And then the families come over and say, well, here there is already an infrastructure of Germans, family, friends, and then they come over and then it grows and grows, always in the same.
Certainly, I think it was an important factor for Argentina development after the Second World War.
Yes,
it's good help to the economy.
Yeah, not only Germans, I mean immigration.
Immigration in general.
In general. One is said that the Argentinian population actually come from the ships. They say in a funny way in Spanish.
Okay, once we talk about Argentina, I cannot miss a word or things called tango.
Yes.
How did you find it, and how live is it there?
Yes, we were of course watching tango very often, but I must say there is like what I would call the touristic tango. These shows for tourists and the real tango, and it was also very nice. I have a nice memory of the visit of our mayor of Berlin back then to Buenos Aires, and he wanted to visit one of the real tango places. And then this is where people really go and dance tango because they enjoy it, not to just please the tourists and show them how nicely they do it, but just because they enjoy dancing themselves.
So how was it?
It was very interesting. I mean,
so people basically themselves dance. This is part of their culture.
Yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. Yes.
Well, okay.
Yes.
Now let's go back to music.
Yes.
How happened that you were singing in the very famous, prestigious Berlin theater in the choir?
Yes. Well, this was after our last posting in Thailand. We spent several years in Berlin. And on one hand, I was always writing, working alone, working on myself, spending many hours with myself. And I felt the need of doing something in common with other people, this feeling of cooperation, not being always enclosed in myself, but opening up, and the feeling of constructing, building up something together with other people. This you lack a lot when you work as a writer and you spend many hours, many hours, just you and the paper in front of you. So, on the other hand, as I said before, music was always very relevant in my life, and I felt the need of actively also taking part of it, of a music performance. But unfortunately, I learned piano when I was small, but it is too late. I don't play well, and I felt it was too late already to develop skills into learning a new instrument. So I thought, how about singing? And then in Berlin, there are a lot of choirs. There is a lot of cultural life, a lot of musical life. And then I chose the one with certain features that I liked. And I joined this choir that happens to perform.
Have you been singing before?
I had never been singing before. I mean, I sing in the shower if you want. I enjoy singing. But I was not singing before. But
you were enjoying singing?
Yeah, you have
any parents singer or musicians?
Not really. Well, musicians, yes. My mother is a pianist. I mean, I was grown up with enjoying music, if you want. But singing, no. But well, it turned out that I didn't do it so badly. I was accepted in the choir. You have to pass like a certain period where they just check whether you're good enough. You have a sort of examination there. And then they have a lot of vocal training. So you learn, you develop yourself, you develop your skills while you're there.
How long it took this local vocal training?
Vocal training we have constantly there. It is part of being part of the choir. I mean, we have our rehearsals.
How many people would?
70 people.
70
people.
Mostly women, or?
No, not necessarily. There are always more women than men, but...
the choir is something close to your religion.
Oh, no, not at all. No.
You are from north of Spain.
I'm from north of Spain.
Basque country.
No, but the choir, even if you perform religious music, because it happens that the best music pieces have to do with religion as much as art in general.
You were singing in Berlin, then now you are singing with our choir in Mongolia.
Yes,
How it happened?
Yeah, this is a great opportunity that I had. I would have never dreamt that this could happen. And when I arrived here, I thought I'm going to miss my music, my belonging to the choir, doing something together. And then I was offered this opportunity by the theater of Opera State Academic Theater of Opera and Ballet here. And I was very happy.
You were on Traviata.
I was performing as part of the choir in La Traviata and Lucia di Lammermoor, and 2 operas.
So how do you find the difference singing in choir in Berlin and Ulaanbaatar?
Well, of course, for me it's a little more difficult here because of the language. But
they were singing in Mongolian?
No, I mean the performances of Italian operas in Italian, but I'm talking now of the instructions. When you go to the rehearsals and you say, now let us repeat, now we start on here, number so and so, I mean all these instructions, you won't be understanding if you don't speak Mongolian. They're of course in Mongolian, but somehow it is, in the end you come to understand what is going on. And
were there any principal difference between vocal training, rehearsals in between Berlin and Ulaanbaatar?
You know, I was always thought that my Berliner choir was very German. In a way that it was very disciplined. We were always very punctually, if your rehearsal starts at this time, it will really start at this time, not a second before or a second after. But I thought this was like a German future of our choir. But when I arrived here, I saw that it's exactly the same. I mean, this discipline where, you know, that time is so important that you should never be late to a rehearsal and so. It is exactly the same kind of discipline and organization, what I saw here than in Berlin.
Choir is itself organizations.
Yes, I think it is needed because very often the time where you have a stage at your disposal or the orchestra at your disposal is limited. So you have to make the best of all this limited time that you have. This is why punctuality is so important in this concern.
On the other hand, you need to have a great discipline, and also you have to be relaxed, full of energy to come to sing, right?
Yes.
How important is that?
It is very important. In Berlin, part of our training, part of the rehearsal is always to do some kind of physical movements, you know, so that I think that when you sing, a lot of your muscles will be singing with you, will be taking part of the operation of your singing, so you really need to be fit, and it is part of it, of every rehearsal, of course, of every performance. You really have to be relaxed, do some movements, and train your voice.
However, you know, I thought I had the privilege to see live Luciano Pavarotti in Denver, Colorado. When I studied there. They were close, and it was such an impression. But he was a big guy and very thorough, deep voice, right? And I thought, oh, you need to have a big mass to sing like this. Well, no. But later on I learned very thin lady sing so powerful.
Not necessarily.
It is not the mass issue, it's a weight, the muscle issue.
Yeah, exactly. It's a way you train your muscles.
Then I really want to ask you another questions about national identity. Because diplomats are the people who they mostly see that by all their life. They're traveling, living in particular cultural environment. You are being Spanish, also now German, then living in Latin America, Thailand, here in Mongolia, and many other countries. What is national identity?
Well, it's an issue I think a lot about, because I think that I come from the Basque country, as you said. So, especially in my childhood, I had to convive with the worst phase of nationalism, which is fanatism and terrorism. We were hit by terrorism for many decades. So it's an issue that I'm concerned about, and I think of it very often. And well, now what is happening in my country these weeks with Catalonia, and so it's a question that you come to think about all the time and to question what is really nationalism and how much of a rational feeling is it. I mean, it can easily lead to centralism, patriotism, the dangerous concepts in the end. So I always try to not that I tried, I didn't consider try to, but I came to the conclusion that nationalism is responsible for many of the problems of mankind, many of the wars that we have been attending in the last centuries. And I don't really understand, so from my perception, I can't understand how nationalism in the end will lead you to put as your main individual credential belonging to an abstract, after all, with like nation and boundaries nowadays are based on artificial constructs, on blood very often in the past. So it is for me hard to understand.
Do you accept, do you identify yourself as Spanish, Basque national, or German national, or global national?
Neither nor, I would say neither nor. I mean, I try to find out what defines my national identity. And if at all, I think I am linked to the language, maybe, to Spanish, because it's actually the language I am capable to express myself. So it is defining what I am and what I am towards the others. And in this respect, language might define what I am. On the other hand, I always think if I am a born Spanish speaker, it's an accident after all. It's only because I was born in Spain and I was the daughter of my parents who were in Spain. In that respect, I felt very happy to be able to positively acquire a different citizenship, which is the German one, because I think this was satisfying one of the most precious liberties.
Do your children speak Spanish?
Yes, they do. I always spoke Spanish to them.
So, and also German?
Also German.
So being bilingual, what would be their identity?
Very often I ask them about that too, but I think that they were always traveling around too. So for them, belonging to a country or to the other is not that issue either. It's,
do they visit Spain, your parents?
Yes, we go at least once.
So they speak freely and fluently?
They speak fluently.
Otherwise the local people will not recognize they are half Germans.
Well, I think that nowadays they speak Spanish with a little bit accent, German accent, but they speak fluent.
So language, yeah, because I'm now more and more thinking about my country. More and more people living abroad now. Now it's already 150,000. And many kids, in particular I saw in America, Mongolians try their best to their children. They ask them to learn better English. At the end, they don't speak Mongolian. Mm-hmm. So now that I'm concerned about the language as being the number one identity factor.
Yes, well, I think whatever loss is always a reduction of yourself. So I always try to encourage that my children would speak 2 languages, even 3 languages. If you stick to one language, you lose the other one.
First, to learn your national identity with what nationality you have identification, right? Then learn other languages, which can be enriching your career, your life.
Absolutely.
Of course, it is an endless talk about national identity. But however, we have covered very interesting perspectives from your side about life, active participation, finding yourself, expressing yourself, even in the manner that you will not do otherwise before, but now you do it, exactly. Like choir. So I find it's a lot facets of interest in life, and thank you very much for sharing these with us.
Oh, it was a pleasure for me. Thank you very much to you. Thank you, Jargal.
За хүнд үзэгчдээ өнөөдөр манай дефактоны түүхийн зочноор Испанийн зохиолч Elena Alonso Frayle оролцлоо. Баярлалаа.